Hey, 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 welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. Really Charlie podcast is brought to you by StreamYard, Anchor, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. I am very, very happy about our next guest, which is Dr. Karoline Oliveira, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Exclusion Officer at a New England Health Center, and her intellect is very, very top notch. And I just can't wait to hear her, talk to her, just basically talk about the vaccine and the numbers that, compared to race in the minority community, how it's pretty much from what I see, it's usually like a third. It's like a 3-to-1 type scenario, and the minorities on the lower part. So, and then keeping in mind that it's not out there in a broad scope. We need to get it out there more and strategically into broader parts of the state. The country, and in this case, New England area. So, but we're going to talk about it. It's a tremendous guest here, and I'm going to invite her to the podcast right now. Okay, so stay tuned. Hello.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Hello, hello, hello.
How you
Thank,
doing, Dr.
I'm
Karoline?
wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. Thank you for, just your platform and using it this way, and just and all the different topics you bring up, right? But this one is especially important, I think, for folks to sort of talk about and maybe just share some information. I hope I have to always put this disclaimer out because while I work for Community Health Center Incorporated here in Connecticut, I am not a medical doctor. I am a doctor of education. So I say that because my job and my role is to educate people, and I just want to make sure that folks understand I am not a medical doctor, but that's important to know. But I am an
Yeah,
educator, and so that's my role today. So
it's a title given and a title earned, and you
yeah,
earned it.
thank you, thank you. Um, so I'm here today to just share a little bit about the vaccine. Acknowledging and recognizing what some of the concerns are, and then I really want to just sort of hear. Maybe from you, what are some of the things that you're hearing in the community? Part of my role as the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at CHC is to um, uh, not only just dispel myths, but also educate folks on the importance of the vaccine and how it is our way out of this, really, essentially. And I liken it to the polio vaccine, right? And I liken it to other vaccines that we take, where now diseases are, we don't even hear about them so much anymore, right? But
So,
the challenge,
yes.
but the challenge is making sure that a vaccine is only as good as the number of people in arms it gets into. So that's kind of our challenges that we're facing now. Um, you were right on target when you said about a third. So somewhere in each state is different.
Hmm.
Somewhere around 72%, 70 something percent of takers of the vaccine are not people of color. So white people or people who don't identify as people of color. And so that's the challenge, right? Um,
Yes.
and we know that historically, people of color have not been treated well in the past in some instances by the medical community. So it's important to acknowledge that, right? It's important to understand and acknowledge why people may experience a sense of hesitancy. But I am of the belief that, well, first of all, those things, and I think of like Tuskegee experiments and things like that. There have been um, the community needs to understand that there have been um, systems and protections in place since that. So that something like that would not happen today, and people need to understand that. And so I would also say that hesitancy is not a no. right?
Hmm.
So when people ask and they say, "Well, I don't know how I feel about it." Well, that's not a no. And so I look at that as an opportunity and a challenge to sort of educate folks on why they should consider. And most times when they have more information, people are inclined, and we're seeing that the numbers are getting better in terms of people wanting to have the vaccine. Some of the challenges we have are um, access, right? So there are issues, particularly people of color, about access. How do I register? Or maybe um, I don't have access to the internet in the same way that other people may. And so those are some of the challenges. Certainly, some of the challenges are lack of vaccine, right? So we just are not, we don't have the amount of vaccine that we really
Hmm.
need to vaccinate everybody just yet. So those are some of the challenges. But I want to sort of maybe, I don't know if your guests are able to ask questions, or are they, or um,
They what they do is they'll ask on a in the comment section,
okay,
and if it's something they want to kind of verbally kind of ask you, what I'll do is kind of give them my number and have them
okay,
call, put them on speaker, and we'll go from there. I can even actually invite a guest if they want to,
okay.
just by sending them a link in the copy section, and we can go from there.
So maybe I'll start with a little bit about the different vaccines that are out there, and because mostly we hear about Moderna and Pfizer, and so
Yes.
Moderna and Pfizer both are two-shot vaccines, and so essentially, um, well, let me tell you a little bit about them. So Moderna, you take the first shot, and then you would take the second one 20 days, 28 days out, and Pfizer, same thing. You take your first shot, and you take the second one 21 days out. I had someone ask me, oh, and then the efficacy is so how effective these are. Moderna is 94% effective after the second dose, and
Hmm.
Pfizer is 95% effective. So what that means is, let me give you some context. The flu shot that people take every year is about 44% effective. So
Wow.
when you think about how uh, how equipped these vaccines are with being able to protect people from real deathly illness, right? They're
Hmm.
highly effective, far more effective than the flu shot. But because the flu shot's been around, and we, we're kind of used to it, we're accustomed to hearing people getting it every year. It's not as alarming. It's not as scary. And so that's part of it. So we need to understand how effective these vaccines are. Someone described it to me. I asked one of our medical professionals, because I don't have a medical background, explain it to me in sort of really, like, layman's terms that I can understand and that I can sort of convey to other people when I'm trying to explain this vaccine. And
Okay.
so I'm going to explain it in a way so that people say, well, how does it work? I had a woman ask me yesterday, a family friend asked me, well, why do we need two? The only
Hmm.
vaccine that I know that we need two of is like the hepatitis shot. They come in sometimes in sets of two, right? Um, and so she wasn't sure about that. She's like, what is that about? Flu shots only one, and why is that?" And so I'm gonna sort of share a little sort of analogy. It helped me process it. So imagine that you are in your neighborhood, and you live on a small tiny street. You've got like six houses. Everybody knows everyone. Everybody is like, kind of looks out for each other, the neighbors, right? And so this person is walking down the street that you noticed this day. You're like, I've never seen them before, but no harm, no foul. I've just never seen them before, right? And
Hmm.
I noticed them because they just don't. They're not going in anyone's house. They just don't look like anyone I've seen in this area. And then you shortly learn that 2 days later, you learn that your neighbor's house was, broken into. Let's say, right?
Hmm.
So that noticing that person that didn't really fit, that's the first shot. The first shot is them injecting you with a protein. It's not a live virus. It's just a protein that they've identified. Now, mind you, and we'll talk a little bit about speed, because I know that's a concern the speed at which this vaccine was established, right? But in
Yes.
any event, back to the story. That first shot is they're putting the protein in your into your system. Your immune system notices that person walking down the street. I've never seen that protein before. That protein doesn't live in this area. It's never been in my body before. I've never recognized it before. I'm going to take note of that protein. That person walking down the street. You
Mm,
learn that people are dying, and this protein is really dangerous. So I'm like, okay, I'm on the lookout. What happens is 21, 28 days later, you have the second vaccine. And now your immune system says, oh, okay, I remember when you came by these spots last time and you were up to no good. And so as your immune system, as a community, is like, they're going to stop them and they're going to
mhm.
like stop them in their tracks. We're going to attack you. You're not going to hurt us. You're not going to enter into our homes. You're not going to enter into our bodies. And we are going to protect ourselves from this predator. That's why it takes two. So the first vaccine is just an alert because your body has not been really exposed to this new virus before. And the second one, it triggers your immune system to respond and to attack this protein. It's not a live virus. It is the protein that has been extracted from the COVID virus. Does that make
True.
sense?
Yes, it does.
And
Yes,
I
it
hope
does.
you understand that that's why it takes two, and that's what is happening when your body is taking receiving these vaccines. Um, so some of the things that I know that people are afraid of is, and you'll have to forgive me because sometimes I go around, so you'll have to say, Carol, come back to this if you know
Uh-huh.
talking about. Um,
Yes.
but so some of the concerns that people have is the quickness and the speed at which it we heard this vaccine called the development called warp speed, and just really references to how quickly it has been established. And what I need to share is that it's relative because the base and the sort of the embodiment that carries this protein, that has been researched for years and years and years. So Dr. Kizzy Corbett, who is an African American woman who works at the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, she works very closely with Dr. Fauci, who we all know and trust, right, and love,
Hmm.
and wait on his every word, right? And so we're so thankful that he's able to speak so freely now.
So
Um,
true.
right? And so, but Dr. Kizzy Corbett, she is the person who identified the protein. But they have been working on the sort of the again, I'm not a medical person. I'm talking to you like real folk, right?
Hmm.
So the carrier of that protein, that is not new. They have been working on this for years and years and years. And so when they talk about the length of time that it takes to create a vaccine, it's all that legwork behind the scenes that takes a long time. Well, that for this vaccine has already been done. They had already been working on this type of vaccine. It just happened that she was able to identify that protein really quickly, which allowed for them. And then the other piece of that, extending onto that, is because we knew that this was going to be that it was taking over, that they were able to take a risk and take a chance and start the production of this vaccine before they really knew that it was safe. Now you might say, well, I don't want to take anything. No, the testing caught up to it, but they were taking a chance because normally what would happen is when they finish the testing, all the trials, then they go into production, and that's why it takes so long. But with this vaccine, because it was just sweeping the world, they decided, you know what, because we know the base of this is not something new, we've worked with it, we can expect that it will be effective, right? And they took a chance on the production. That's how it was so fast. So people need
True.
to understand it's not the vaccine that was created quickly. It was mostly production. I hope that's helpful.
The No, it is. In fact, we it's definitely helpful for me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners. We have our first question, so let's kind of see where it leads us. And it says, are there any safe alternatives to the current marketed vaccine, and how does not taking it add a higher risk to healthy adults?
Okay. So as of right now, the vaccines that we have that have been, and they've not been FDA approved. So let's make that distinction. They're not FDA approved, but they've been approved for emergency use based on all that we're experiencing and all that they know. But they are expected to be, so Pfizer and Moderna are expected to get FDA approval, right? So it's just a matter of timing, because again, this has been really, really working really quickly to make all these steps. So that's the first thing. But aside from Moderna and Pfizer, we have there will be a lot of them that will come up, right? The next one that we probably hear most about is Johnson and Johnson. And so there are some differences in them. So for example, Moderna really has some really strict guidelines about temperature and really having to be stored at a really, really low temperature. And so, well below zero, right? And so there are challenges to, which also impacts, deliverability and how effective we can be in the community. But there are challenges to handling that vaccine. There are really specific, along with Pfizer as well, really specific guidelines as to how you can, how you activate it, how you can, when you can sort of defrost it and use it, and how long you can use it for. So there are really strict guidelines. Um, Johnson and Johnson is a different type of vaccine in that it does not require those extreme temperatures. It can be stored in a regular freezer. It can be, so it makes it a little bit easier to transport. So if you, let's say you want to do like a mobile vaccine of sorts, you're able to use that one a little bit ready. That one has not been approved yet, but we expect that it will be very soon. Now, its effectiveness is not as high as Moderna and Pfizer. So some might say, well, why would I want that vaccine? Well, any of these vaccines to date is going to prevent, folks from severe illness and death, right? So
Yes.
I think Johnson and Johnson is at 66%, whereas we heard, I shared that the others are much higher in the 90s. But even at 66%, it is going to um, prevent severe illness and death in adults, right? In
Yeah.
anyone. So it's still a really good vaccine. There are some benefits to it as well. If some of the conversation around, and we don't decide who gets what vaccine. It really is federal, state, and health officials based on need and that sort of thing. But if I could see that Pfizer vaccine being given to folks who well, let me not make it. But you think someone who is transient, who may not be available to come back for a second one, but you still want to make sure that they have some protections, maybe they would use it in that case. But they're still very highly effective. The second part of that question, would you remind me the second part of that question, Charlie?
Let's see. It says, and how does not taking it add a higher risk to healthy adults?
Well, look around. We've had, we're approaching. What are the numbers? I haven't even checked today. And the number of people who we have lost to COVID, right? So that's that's the greatest fear of not taking a vaccine is death, right? I
Yeah.
mean, plain and simple, it's death, and we've seen it. We've experienced, many of us either have had a direct or indirect impact from this disease, from this virus, and so that is the greatest. But the other thing is the variants. You've heard us talk a lot about the variants. And so how variants work is the virus is constantly looking for a host to live, right? To fester, to
Mhm.
cause disease, to just live. And so the more people who become vaccinated, right? What happens is that vaccine will mosey on way, say to you, Charlie, oh, no room at the end. You've been vaccinated.
Mhm.
There's no place for them to sort of jump in and sort of nest up, cozy up, maybe change a little bit because I see them coming at me. I'm going to shift a little bit. That's that whole mutation that you hear about, right? And so the more people who become vaccinated, the fewer hosts we have to welcome in this virus into their body. And that's how a virus dies. That's how we saw polio go away. That's how we eliminate illness and death by not providing hosts for this virus. And that's what the vaccine does. It prevents you from being a host for this virus.
Wow. It's it's you made it very, very understandable to me, and it's obviously um something that I believe that we have to do, and I'm waiting. I'm still waiting for mine, and when it happens and when I'm called, I'm definitely going to take the vaccination. Um, and I mean, we're always going to have some concerns, and that's just something as people, you know, no matter what color you are, it's still gonna. There's always going to be concerns when you're taking a needle
Mm-hmm.
for something. And but education is key.
Right.
We have we have actually two more questions. So let's see where it leads us.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing, Dr. Caroline, you are doing a great job, and
Ah,
this is why I got you here.
thank you. Thank you.
All right. So it says, what causes people to have a reaction to the shot? I have read about a lot of fatalities. This makes
Okay.
it hard for me to say yes, this shot for me.
Okay. So two things. What makes people have bad reaction? It's primarily if people who have had extreme allergies to either things that the vaccine consists of, or it's mostly people who have allergies. But I will tell you, we have not had. So I'm going to tell you this, and I know we're streaming on social media. Do
Yeah.
not get your information from Facebook, please.
Yeah.
Please do not get your information from Facebook. It is not true that any one person has died from this vaccine. Not one. Not one.
Hmm.
Okay. So whoever told you that, they're not, they're getting their information from an inaccurate source. No one, not one fatality from these vaccines. So that is truth. That is fact. That is, you can take that to the bank thus far. Okay.
I
So,
love it.
you need to be mindful of where you're getting and I understand. I mean, we share information on Facebook, and sometimes Facebook, as we saw in other issues, I'll just say political stuff, Facebook can be the enemy too sometimes because of its misinformation, and folks just want to are looking for information. So I would tell you, for the latest information, go to the CDC website, right? Go to the National Institute of Health, which is where Dr. Corbett works. Go to real legitimate sites. Don't get your information from Facebook. It's just going to scare you, and it's going to prevent you from doing what is best for yourself and your families and your community. So don't get your news from Facebook.
Well, this is similar to what you just said. The black and brown community are concerned with the effects. Years from now, there are also people that are convinced that they are injected metal inside the vaccine to keep track of people. How can we help our community understand?
Well, whoever posed the statement question, I'm assuming that they understand that that's not true. It's
Yeah,
just not true. And so I'm thankful that that was brought up, because we have heard that, right? And what
yeah,
happens is it's like urban legend, right? And you remember Snopes? I don't know if you remember Snopes back in the day,
yeah.
but it was like where you go and investigate urban legends. It's just not true. And
Hmm.
this is how we educate the community. Events like this, opportunities like this, and just talking to people who either are medical professionals, or, like I said, going to the spaces where you need to get the information. But it's really just not true. And as a Black woman, right? I had some hesitancy in the beginning. I was like, wait a minute. Well, maybe I won't be the first one in line. Folks have
Hmm.
asked me if I've had them. I have had both. I had Moderna, and I have had both of my shots. I had absolutely, I think, Charlie, you and I are friends on Facebook, so you maybe saw me, chronicle my experience, and I'll talk to you a little bit
Yeah,
about what you can expect when you get the shots. But nothing that was really so noteworthy that I would say to anybody not to consider getting the shots. Um, but this is how you dispel myths, by bringing in people who, I mean, I work. We are community health center. Again, I know I'm not. You all are in Massachusetts for the most part, but I imagine you have other people watching. And so here in Connecticut, the Community Health Center is the largest sort of distributor in vaccinators in the state. We will be the first uh, federally qualified community health center to get the vaccine directly from the federal government, as opposed to going to the state and then being distributed. So we're doing a lot of vaccinating here in Connecticut. Um, but these are the folks that you should be getting your information from, not from Facebook, or folks who think they're sharing information, but you need to ask folks, and where did you get that from? Who told
yeah.
you that?
Hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Kind of. A lot of people want to make it quick and easy, and
Yeah.
use some of their they use some of their sources, like
Mhm.
a quick
Mhm.
fix, like pressing a button of a microwave. Your food's going
Yeah.
to be cooked quicker, so on and so forth. And we have to, as adults, when we click that share button, that information is accurate, truthful, so on and so forth. So um, Michael Consatio says, awesome guest. My question is, if someone tests negative twice and one inclusive, but have symptoms, what do you suggest? Thanks for coming on. Great job, Charlie.
Well, again, I'm not a medical professional, so I don't want to diagnose anybody on, on Facebook and on StreamYard. So, I would
Yeah.
I would say that, it could be that maybe they don't have COVID. Maybe they have, the flu, right? The flu is
Yeah.
still out there. The flu is still out there, but it's not. We have seen, because of the masking and social distancing and all of these precautions that we have been exercising, we have really seen very little flu. So, I would just tell that person to go back to their provider if they're still not feeling well, and maybe, maybe that first testing, it wasn't showing anything. The second testing, I don't have an answer for that because I'm not a medical professional, and I don't certainly would never want to mislead anybody. So I would just tell that person if they're still not feeling well that they should maybe return back to their provider, and ask them to do some further testing.
Yeah. It's uh and that's what I would recommend. And I did see on the news this week about the flu. Um, the flu, the numbers are real low, and it's basically, to stop the flu. It's basically what we're doing right now. Hand
Hmm.
sanitizing, masking our face. Just that in itself will
Hmm.
definitely keep the flu away. So,
Hmm. And
um,
it's what's amazing is, um, it, it took us to go through COVID to understand that we have more control over the flu than we think, right? And
mhm,
for whatever reason, we're just not as afraid of the flu. I don't know. I don't. We think of it, I think, as like a winter cold, but the flu can be really dangerous, particularly for those vulnerable populations, right? But we have learned through this process that we do have some control over it because we have seen the numbers of flu. I mean, dramatically drop. And so that's really what it's about. But I will say that, the reason why we're still seeing, the numbers increase like, crazy with COVID is because, one, folks weren't as consistent as they should be with their masking, right? And social
mhm,
distancing and hand washing and all of that. Um, and you had folks who were just refusing to buy into that at all. So that was sort of perpetuating this sort of virus being, shared. But also, uh, the virus of COVID is far more contagious than flu. And so
yeah,
that's why, but we were able to really contain flu this year, for the most part, because of our just masking up. So just think, Michael Jackson was ahead of his time, brother, when he was wearing his mask. He
mhm,
was ahead of his time. And so, there's that. I wanted to circle back. I see you, looks like you have some other questions, but I wanted to circle back about, if it's okay with you, to
yes,
talk
of
about
course,
what my experience was when I took the vaccine, because I know some people are like, well, what can I expect? And so, back to my analogy about, the neighborhood watch situation. And so, the first shot, there's nothing really to compare it to. You'll have a little bit of soreness in your arm, like you do with any other vaccination. When you're a kid and you had a measles shot, or when you get a flu shot now, you get a little tenderness. Sometimes your arm gets a little bit heavy, right at the injection spot.
true.
That's what will happen most often. And again, this is my experience. It's an experience that I've shared with other people, and they've shared very similar experiences, but it's my own. So I say that as my disclaimer, right? Um, but so the arm is heavy, so 3 weeks later, I went back for my booster, and that's when the fun began. That is when the fun began. And so I was like, okay, I know my immune system is working. And how do I know? Because I was tired. I felt a little bit lethargic. I felt a little bit like really crummy.
Hmm.
So after I took the shot, about 2 hours later, I started feeling like a little chilly, and like chills, and I just couldn't shake it, right? And my husband made me some tea with a little brandy in it, whatever, and I,
Hmm.
I just couldn't shake it. And that was the evening of. I took it on a Saturday. The next day, I woke up and I had a headache from. It was just unbelievable. But what I will tell you is, it's nothing that a little Tylenol wouldn't help. Helped. I slept a lot, and I didn't have COVID.
Hmm.
So you see, I had a headache. It was not fun. I hate, and I never get headaches, so for me, a headache is like, eh. Um, but I felt crummy. No problem. It lasted one day. Maybe I had a little bit of a remnant of the headache the next, the second day after, and then I felt fine. So I say that because what is happening is you may not feel like you're sitting in your chair, you're watching your TV, and you feel crummy, but on the inside, your immune system is kicking butt. It
Hmm.
found that protein, it saw it come down the street again, and it is kicking its warm in its jacket. And so
Hmm.
that's why you're tired. That's why you're fatigued. There's a lot going on inside your body that you are not really controlling like in the same way that we, pick up our phone or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's why your body feels crummy after you take the second one because it is inside doing work. And you want to feel that crummy because then you know that your body is doing what it's supposed to. It is identified that that stranger is in the neighborhood again, and we go ahead and get you out of here. And that's
Yes.
how you are protected from COVID.
Excellent. State State of Connecticut is very fortunate to have you.
Oh, thank you.
They definitely are, and I'm glad. I'm very very happy that you know I know firsthand how you are. I know your sincerity. I definitely know that you know as Deion Sanders says, there's no bull junk from you
Oh,
whatsoever.
I like that. No bull junk.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love when he says that. Him and
Mhm.
Shannon Sharp, instead of saying BS, they say bull junk.
Bull
And
junk. I like
hmm
it.
yeah, yeah. So
Do
um,
what about
go ahead.
registration? Are folks what are folks saying? I don't know how this long this podcast is because I can go on and on and on. So are we
We
usually a half hour or what is your timeline on this?
we got 30 minutes for you. Um,
Oh, okay.
we got as long as you want to talk, as long as they want to give us questions, we'll stay on. And so
Okay.
we got plenty of time.
And I just want to really talk about registration and because that's a real problem for people of color sometimes, right?
Hmm.
Um, we have found, and in Connecticut, our numbers are challenged too. Like we're doing a lot of vaccinating, but we're not seeing the numbers that we necessarily want to see with people of color. Considering, especially because we are, as brown and black folk, we are the most vulnerable, right? So how are we making sure that our folks are getting vaccinated? Well, one is addressing the hesitancy, and that's what we're doing in things like this today, right? We're talking about the importance and the safety of the vaccine. But the other part of it is, how do we register? So I don't know exactly what the process is in for Massachusetts, but I did do a little bit of research. And let me see. If you go to let me see. I went to mass.gov, so mass.gov.
Yep.
That is the state of Massachusetts, sort of government agency that will then from that page you can learn information about registration. What I will tell you is if you have a senior center in your area, if you have, that's kind of what I was doing. If you have a senior center or your Department of Health, go call them. If you don't have access to go online, call them. Get on your phone and just say, in Connecticut, we use 211, but I don't know exactly what it is in Massachusetts. So, you may have to do a little bit of research. But what I will tell you is if you are a younger person, and that is not your challenge. I am imploring you, I am challenging you to find out the local and areas where older people can get vaccinated, where they can register for vaccine, and then contact your auntie, contact your grandmother, contact the lady who lives next door, the gentleman who lives across the street. Talk to people and say, hey, have you thought about the vaccine? Are you okay? Are you having trouble registering? How can I help you? Because we need to be in this together. The disease is only going to go away if we're all in. We all need to be vaccinated because again, that's how we create that what they call herd immunity. We all
Hmm.
need to be like a closed door, right? There's no room at the inn over here, Mr. Virus. You ain't coming over here. And so we all need to be in that space with a closed door. So each one help one. And so I encourage you all, my mother is 77 years old and she's really savvy, but
Hmm.
even she had a difficult time trying to navigate some of the the registration processes and all of that. And so I would encourage you, when it's what if you have elderly people in your life or just people across the street in your neighborhood, reach out to them and make sure that they're not having a difficult time trying to identify where they can register and get the vaccine. And then when it's your turn, make sure you get your vaccine too. When it's your turn, no, you hear some of these stories, folks trying to buck the line and all that. Just wait your turn. We've gotten through it this far, wearing our masks, with our social distancing, washing our hands, so we can go a little bit longer. But when it's your turn, get your vaccine. It's important.
Exactly. The I mean, I can't wait. Still trying to convince, my wife to get it done. She's a little reluctant. However, I know
Tell
she's
Michelle
listening.
she needs to call me. Michelle, you need to call me. We're gonna have a chit chat.
She's listening. So
Oh,
she
okay.
does. She
Hi,
definitely.
Michelle.
So we got to get her on board, along with many, many, many others. I. I mean, I'm always kind of feeling the sorrow of people that we have lost, and always anticipating that someone else is coming today. Someone else we're gonna feel the pain and agony, and so with me, I'll take the shot. I'll deal with everything. I'll deal with the numbness in my body, everything. And if you're taking a shot and you're actually, your body wants to go to sleep, your body's always going to tell you what it needs to do. When you're thirsty, you drink. When you need to
Mhm,
sleep, you sleep.
mhm.
And I don't have any problem popping a Tylenol, getting rid of that headache, just like you said. Um,
You won't have
and
COVID.
yes, exactly. I don't want it.
Mhm.
I don't. I try to. This year was last year was very tough for me, and some parts of this year, a shortened year. I've lost some dear people, and so I just want to stop going through that.
Yep.
Especially, it's almost like you have a remedy on the shelf, it just can't reach it right now.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to get to it. Hopefully everyone gets to it.
Just keep doing what you're doing, Charlie. I feel like we have come this far, and with so much tragedy and so much death and loss, um, but we're not there yet. And
Hmm.
so, if there's one thing I would leave with you is, even once you even have your vaccine, continue to do all the things that we're doing until we know that the majority of folks have had it. Because I double mask. I absolutely double mask up when I go out. And I still and I've had both, right? I still social distance. I still wash my hands. I still make sure that I'm not being sort of reckless, because I feel like I'm protected, right? We need to do this not only for ourselves, but for our loved ones and our community members, particularly my young folks out there. I'm talking to you.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm specifically talking to you young folks. Mask up, if not for yourself, but for your nana, for your vovo. Mask up, right?
Yes.
Wash your hands. Stop. You don't need to be in everybody's face. Back up, right? And I'm being a little bit snarky, but I'm doing that on purpose because it's important. So even once we have our vaccines, we still need to protect ourselves and others until we all know at the masses we have been protected as a community and as a nation in the world. So you still need to practice all of those precautions that we're not out of the woods yet. We're getting there. We can see the
Yes.
light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not there yet.
I got a dear friend. Actually, this gentleman right here is going to be a future guest. Hopefully sometime next week. And he says, I am reluctant, by my research has shown me no results of people with heart transplants. My team of doctors have had meetings with me, but I don't need any side effects. I need to know something other than pain. And this is someone that's a very close friend of mine, and is he's got an extraordinary story. And so I'm going to actually talk about, he's going to come on here and eventually tell his story. And I, I definitely, I never doubt him. He's a very strong man. And I know he's going to make all the right choices, him and his doctors,
Right.
to make sure that he stays safe.
That's right. And in
Just
situations like that, that's absolutely the right decision. You make those decisions with your physicians. Hmm.
exactly. Um, it's from Susan Gula. It says, "Good afternoon. Thanks for all the information. Yes, get your vaccines. My daughter is a scientist, and my son-in-law is a doctor. So yes, Michelle, get your shot. Love. Yes, everyone's important.
Yeah.
Lots of friends and people gone too soon. Prayers. And yes, her daughter is. Oh, I mean, still, I think of her, and she's still that little kid, and but no, she's doing amazing things. Amazing scientist. Always been smart.
Hmm.
And definitely, um, Susan. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And actually, thanks for that encouragement for Mrs. Perry to get her shot.
Hmm.
She may not listen to her husband sometimes, and that's why we have this podcast that says, "Really, Charlie."
That's funny.
She's always I have her on recording, and I'm trying to add it to the audio. So when I start the podcast, it's
When you
going to
say
be
something fresh, she can chime in. Get him, Michelle.
yes.
Yeah. So, I think when this is over, hopefully we have learned some lessons, that we have learned to love more, be more intentional about the way we treat people, the way we recognize the fragility of life, um, and what it means to be a community. Because if this disease has taught us one thing, it is that it is not all about self. We really need to be concerned not only just for ourselves, but the people around us, and they need to be concerned with us as well. And so, you know, the tragedy of it all, I think of a lot, and I hope I'm not going to upset anyone by saying this, um, in triggering is what I mean. But I think of the people who will pass and who have passed before they've had the opportunity to get this vaccine. And so
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons why I took it too. For those people who passed, and would they have considered taking the vaccine were it not for time, and right, were it not for time? And so I think of them a lot, and I for that reason I have no hesitancy, because I've been blessed and you've been blessed, and those of us who are still on this side have been blessed with this opportunity. Again, I'm not talking about folks who have special needs and they have special considerations, but um, that's who I think about often. Would they, all the people that have died, would they have taken it if they had it? And so that weighs very heavily on my heart. And it's just my thought, and I hope that doesn't serve as a trigger for anyone. It wasn't intended to. It's just the stuff that I think about when I think about the gravity and the opportunity.
So
So,
so true. Um, I just I when we reached out and had a conversation about you know putting this podcast together, and it was kind of quick, but I seen the essence, and I read the essence of why it should be told, and actually being told by you makes it that much better for me. But what this is going to end up doing is it's going to add some more comments when we stop, podcasting, and it's going to bring on another conversation later on, because not everyone's viewing, the Really Charlie podcast as much as I would want thousands of people viewing it. We have a few people viewing it, but if everyone shares this, it leads to more conversations.
mhm,
Click sharing it. If it's 10 people sharing this, it might add to 10 more conversations, or it may lead to people just reading the comments and saying, that's exactly the question I wanted to ask. So,
mhm,
so as you and I move on from this podcast, we need to continue to pay attention to the comments. And if we can pass on some education, we should.
Yep, absolutely. Charlie, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to just be with you and your listeners and your watchers, your viewers. And certainly, if anyone wants to chat with me or they need more information and would like me to help them do some research for them to find more information, I'm happy to do that. You just, I think you'll tag me in this, I guess, right? So folks have questions that they maybe just want, some help with. I'm absolutely available. And I welcome the opportunity to help in any way that I can. So thank you for having me. And I hope folks have found this helpful as they make their decision, because it really is an individual decision.
Yes, it is. It says, where are the locations in New Bedford area to get the vaccine? Well, I want to tell that viewer that City Hall has a list. Go on the city website. They definitely have a list. The health department for the city could give you those names and listings. I wish I had it here to put it on the bottom line so you would see it. But it's a lengthy list, and when in doubt, call your local doctor, and call your personal doctor, and they'll give you the locations. So
And also that website, that mass.gov website will also link you if you're not in New Bedford, but you're in some other, you're in Framingham or you're in, Provincetown or wherever you are, Fall River. If you just go on, it'll be able to link you to sites that are closest to you. So again, I don't live in Massachusetts, so I don't have the information handy, but I do know mass.gov will help you with that and can sort of direct you.
And actually, they have notifications on Facebook that should pop
Oh,
up periodically on your profile, about the vaccination and COVID and all that. Those alerts you should be seeing on your profile. So that's another uh, venue. That's another place to look. When in doubt, your local physician has that,
mhm.
and also the city or town officials too. So, Dr. Karoline, you are one of the best, and high five to you always, and electronic hug. I love you,
Yes, I love
and
you, Charlie. Thank you.
and
Thank you for having me.
all right, we got to do this again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully we'll do it when it's all over. We'll do one on family reunions and how much fun they are.
Exactly, exactly. um,
Okay.
love you. Give the coach a
Love you.
punch in the arm,
I
not the
will.
arm.
Today's his
Not.
birthday. Shout out to my husband Carlton Silk Owens. Today is his birthday. He's an old man,
Mhm.
but he's my old man.
Happy,
So
happy birthday. Yeah,
I
you
will
treat
tell him.
him. See that? I'm like royalty. It's his birthday, but you're with me on
I
this
know.
podcast.
I know.
I
You're
know that's
special.
special.
You're
Hits me in the
special.
heart.
Love you, Charlie. Thank you for having me.
Love you and God bless.
Okay,
Tell
you
mom.
too.
Tell mom I said hi. I know
I
she's
will.
listening, but
Yeah, and if she's not, she'll watch it. I'll tag her. Well, yeah, we'll make sure she sees it. Okay.
all right. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Wow, definitely educational, and I know you all have some more questions. Continue to add those questions to the comment section. Um, Dr. Caroline will see them. She will address them. She's not going to leave you hanging. Definitely get you some input, some education. I'll try to provide as much as I can, as long as you leave a comment where I can kind of direct it to you. After this goes, after this isn't live, the only way we can communicate is through, the inbox, the comment section, so on and so forth. So, as I always end, I always end with mask those beautiful faces, wash and hand sanitize your hands, keep yourself safe, and keep others safe by doing what we recommend. Well, actually, what the state and federal government recommends. I love you guys. Love you. Love you. I really, really appreciate you all listening and tuning in. This podcast is uploaded to YouTube, and the Really Charlie group on Facebook. Bay Village page, my poetry site, a Poetic Pulse. So it's up and running. And stay tuned for the Really Charlie podcast on StreamYard, Anchor, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. Mainly done on Saturdays, but you know what? If someone wants to tell a story, I'm gonna get them on here. This coming week, we have Coach Gonzalez, Mickey Gonzalez from the New Bedford High School. We got him coming on. And we also going to talk to a few local boxers and trainers about David Burr, who had passed away years ago. And we're going to talk about his story and how fascinating of a man he was. And my guest for that show would be Roger Alves. Also, Jimmy Sweets Perry will come on, and feel free to join us on. I will be on Wednesday, and on Tuesday it's Coach Gonzalez. All right, thank you all for listening. Love you. God bless, and have a great day.